So we're going to be going over like how to do dry curing meat, what you need for dry curing meats, key obstacles, and of course what you can produce as well. Just the basics and maybe like that sort of level up slightly as well. Today I'll be doing a pancetta, so let's get into it. At the cornerstone of all of it is of course the salt for dry curing. Now there's all these other types of curing for hot smoking and for brining, but this is going to be more about curing, dry curing at home. If you've got salt and if you've got a fridge, a normal fridge, doesn't have to be a drying fridge, it's another whole video on that DIY side of it. Let's get into it. The way salt works is generally when you're cooking, you're seasoning it. You'll hear a lot if you hang around this channel about equilibrium curing. And when you think about equilibrium curing, it's forcing a certain amount of salt to bind and diffuse into the meat. And salt on the basic level is seasoning when it's under 0.5%, 0.5% of the weight of the meat. So for 1,000 grams, we'll do metric, it's a lot easier, 5 grams. So 5 grams would be for 1,000 grams of meat. And up to that, that's seasoning like. And then for curing, we're looking at more around 2% equilibrium cure. So then you're 20 grams per 1,000 grams of meat. You want to be accurate with all of this stuff, so using accurate scales is really important. Equilibrium curing is like basically using weight rather than volume. If you take a teaspoon of anything, you take a teaspoon of salt, the different kind of structure and shape and the coarseness of the salt will mean that there's actually a different weight. I mean, I base a cup on 250 milliliters, but then a cup of water, a cup of flour, they all weigh a different amount. For whole muscle meats, I don't use the pink curing salt. I've done a lot of research on it, and the chance of the botulism, which is what it's used to protect it, incredibly low amounts. So for me, my personal choice is I don't use it, but it's up to you if you want to as well. Cooking over 350 degrees Fahrenheit, pink curing salt for crispy bacon, for instance, that's where some science is out there that says, okay, so let me show you like some equilibrium curing, how it's done with an accurate scales. This scale here goes down to 1 decimal place. It's one I recommend on my blog as well, eatcuredmeat.com. There's some other pocket scales, or there's a whole bunch of different ones. I'll put a link to that below. So I've got a couple of pieces of pork belly from the butcher. They always pre-slice it, which is not really ideal. Ideally you want to have protection from the meat, and skin, like with prosciutto, does protect it. So anyway, we're going to be doing a pancetta with this chunk. I've taken it did come with the ribs, which I took off. It was 825 grams, 20.6 grams of salt. Now you can use a mortar and pestle. So here is my digital scales to 1 decimal place. I'm putting it into the top of my coffee or spice grinder. Because it's fresh, it's going to be more powerful, and what I might do, because it's fresh, is not actually mix it with the dry stuff, or else it sticks together. So I'll do that in a bit, and then I'll just do the juniper berries, which is 3.71. And the bay leaves as well are going to be torn up and added for the pancetta. So here we go. The old you want relatively fine, but a little bit of cracked pepper is not a problem. Make sure you've got all the bits and pieces as much as possible. So here we've got, so what I'm going to do is tear up my neighbour's bay leaf, sweet laurel some call it, and that's just going to be added into the cure part of it. The right type of bowl is really good because you're wanting to get this cure really on to the meat as much as possible. So I'm going to just show you a bit of detail around that as well. What I'd like to do is, because it'll go through this side a bit more than the other side because of the skin. I like to keep the skin on, to be honest, because we use it for stocks and things like that. After it's been dried out a bit, we'll just chop it up with some kitchen scissors and freeze it all down. So I'm going to start with the salt and the pepper, and then I'm going to get the rest of the ingredients on there as well. You'll wipe it up with the bowl a bit, but you'll see the goal will be really to have nothing left in the bowl. It'll all go into the curing bag. Now this is equilibrium curing is more precise than saturated or salt box curing, which is leaving it basically in a full salt cure, coarse salt, for about 2 pounds per day of meat. If you've got any cuts or crevices, you want to pay a bit more attention to them, but on the whole, something like this is very straightforward. What I've been using is these sous vide bags, which are actually reusable, and this is what you need for the vacuum packing part of it. For years and years I used Ziploc bags, which were fine as well. So this cure, I'm really just going to scrape it up as much as possible and get all of it in the bag. And then it'll get a massage when it's in the bag as well. So these Inkbird, I've got a bit of a relationship with Inkbird, and they send me stuff, I try it out, and they sent me these sous vide bags and a sous vide machine, and I use the sous vide machine a little bit. Pretty crazy what you can do with eggs, but I'll show you sealing this up. So there you go. That is going to be the guide I've been going for years. Is about per 1 inch I do 1 week, so I'd give this sort of like two or 3 weeks. It's a bit thicker down this end, a bit thinner down the other end, and that'll just go at the bottom of the fridge. Some people like to put a bit of weight on it to change the shape. They do it with prosciutto and all sorts. So anyway, job done. Just put a reminder on my phone. Like a kind of a Ziploc bags, honestly I used them for probably 10 years. You just have to sort of roll out a lot of the moisture and seal it very well. But apart from that, the old vacuum packer, I don't like the single-use plastic, so that's why I've got into these sous vide bags. And you can have it, there's a manual pump as well to pull out the air inside of it as well. It's very effective, the vacuum packing. Probably means the cure is acting faster as well, I would say, because you've really taken out all that oxygen and you're forcing that equalizing to occur on the inside of the bag to inside the meat. Leaving it in a vac pack like the pancetta I did before, you could leave it in for an extra couple of weeks. I've left it, I think, something for an extra month and still hung it up. Vacuum packing, mortar and pestle or spice grinder, either or. It's about getting a certain weight loss so that the water activity inside the meat from the curing and drying, water molecules supposedly aren't very appealing to the type of bacteria that would spoil it. You're creating an environment that bacteria doesn't like, and it likes moisture. It does not like cold smoke. Smoke is antifungal and antibacterial. It doesn't like acidity, so like the denaturing side of it, and doesn't like salty environments. pHs with the salami, but also with the biltong, salt is generally across the board with curing. So there's quite a bit to salt and how it impacts the meat in different ways. So after the curing here, I've got my dry curing chamber, and you can see here the pancetta, cold smoked bacon, and a couple of netted pieces of lamb. It's sort of like a lamb prosciutto, and then there's some humidification and dehumidification, and then some sensors. It's a plug-in system. I've got a free ebook on it as well if you want to put together with an old fridge, a frost-free fridge. I'll put a link to that one as well. There's going to be a lot of links below, but hopefully it's going to be helpful. And this is, like always, about 70 or 80% humidity, and it's all about losing 30% plus weight loss on a timer, an extraction fan and a hole on the other side, and then you've got the controllers that are plugged in, and basically that's going to be turning things off and on to get whatever the target temperature and moisture is inside. This is just one option. The other option is to look at using small chunks, maybe under about 200 grams or half a pound, and then you can dry it out in 2 or 3 weeks in a regular fridge in your kitchen. And I'll show you some pictures here of some success in that field. As long as you're not using too fatty chunks, you want it quite lean, because the fat takes a lot longer to dry out. It has a different moisture content as well, but you can do it in a regular fridge as well, which is not a problem. I'll do a link to all this stuff on the blog, eatcuredmeat.com. It's even got a calculator to work out like the percentages for curing and equilibrium curing. The reason why a lot of guys get into building a DIY dry curing chamber or getting one of these cabinet ones, as I said, there'll be a review about that, is that if you're doing something big chunks, not these little 1 kilo or 2 pounds, but say 5 or 10 pounds, big whole muscle bits, it'll take like 6 months, 4, 6, 8 whole hind leg of prosciutto, 12 months, 24 months. And so having that controlled environment means that you can place things in there long term. It develops some positive penicillin, beneficial bacteria. You can have this naturally created, inoculated sometimes. I've done it with 3 or 4 of the fridges that I've had over the years. Or you can spray some Bactofirm Mold 600 into the fridge and then create the own bloom. It's a type of penicillin, protects the meat as it's kind of drying out, and from other bacteria as well. So what do you need? As I said, a bowl, some salt, some meat, accurate digital scales. That's really what I would say is the key, and optionally if you want pink curing salt, remembering it with equilibrium curing, because it's a teaspoon could make you incredibly sick. Pink curing salt is pink in America and a lot of other countries. You're using 0.25% for the weight of the meat. So it's normally a tiny amount. Having the accurate digital scales is a way of getting that precision with the amount you're using, specifically around pink curing salt, for sure. So then you've got this type of dry curing, equilibrium curing. Then you've got, like, say, jerky and biltong. Jerky is more like a full drying. You're really drying that to it's like lost all its moisture. Biltong is a South African style, which is sometimes dried completely, sometimes just to, they call it wet. So there's still a little bit of press in it. Using acidity, so you're using like malt vinegar or Worcestershire sauce, high acidity type condiments, as well as the salt, to have, it's called denaturing. So it's a type of kind of like cooking. You have ceviche or ceviche, you know, when you put it in lemon or lime juice, the fish, fresh fish, and it turns white, because it's actually having a very similar effect to cooking. Anyway, biltong, jerky, another project, but just another type of curing is what I'm trying to say. Then I just put it in an oven with the door slightly ajar, slightly open, just the light on and fan. Once it's lost 40 or 50% of its weight, then it's ready, generally quite firm. So it takes a day or two in the oven, and I just let it run, since, you know, it's generally ambient heat is enough created from the light in the oven. So when it comes to the curing, so you've got the saturation method, is basically just normally coarser salt, but so you're covering it with salt for 18 to 24 hours per 2 pounds of meat or 1 kilogram. And this is still used quite often. It's a bit gung-ho, so that's why I've talked about equilibrium curing a bit more, as long as you've got the accurate digital scales. And there'll be another video I have done or will come out about regular fridge curing small chunks, which mean that you don't get as much case hardening, because the case hardening means that it's extra dry in one area compared to the other. It's sort of like you're trying to get this in-between dryness that's not super dry but not super not dry. I mean, you probably, without going into the video in detail, it's like, well, is this going to be for you? And I'm sure you've had dry cured meats before if you're watching this video, but it's about complexity of flavor. That's what I've learned over the years, as well as something which takes time. It's not like a fast food, it's the complete opposite. It's a slow food, and it's something to be savored and appreciated, not just done in bulk. It's just it's small portions that should be appreciated in small portions. So check out my blog, subscribe, and I'll put out some more content soon. Cheers, bye. So with this type of dry curing whole muscle, it's a lot more straightforward than you've got with dry cured salami. I'd say that is more of an advanced kind of approach, because when you're grinding and chopping, you're exposing more surface area to the potential contamination or bacteria growth, and you deal with acidity sometimes to do it. This is like the more consistent, safe approach. Again, I've seen guys just throwing it together and then on YouTube, and then like hanging it in their pantry, and then, oh yeah, it's delicious, wonderful. It can work, and if you want to do that, that's cool, but I like to follow a procedure where I feel it's not cowboy. It's like it's a good, consistent, safe approach. And so whole muscle curing like this, the pancetta, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. You could once in 3 weeks I take it out. I could just place it on a rack in the fridge and let it dry out. But most modern fridges are frost free, so they're running at like 20 or 30% humidity, when really for the dry curing that started off in caves, you know, in Italy, the temperature was, call it 50-60 degrees Fahrenheit roughly, or 10 to 12 degrees Celsius, but the humidity was more around 70, 75, maybe 80%. I've found, yeah, ideally you don't want to go under for longer term things, 60 or 70% humidity. There's a whole nother, on my blog or on this channel, there'll be lots more on DIY curing chambers. I'll also be reviewing a like out of box sort of solution that it could sit on the counter. It's about like 3 foot, about 1 meter high. And I'll be doing a full review. Someone's sending me over from America, but you'll see that in a few months' time.